during the dot-com era, there was a lot of people that, say, oh, who needs internet? Like, it's just another fad and it's going to disappear. And you had that small group of people that just kind of heartily believe that, hey, this is going to be revolutionary. We're going to push it through, right? We had this very tribal thing in crypto as well, where a small group of people are really kind of making a massive push to make sure that we get that adoption.
Hey everybody, Tanner here with WAGMI Ventures. On today's episode, we have Temoc Weber and Igor Mandrigin, co-founders at Gateway. For anyone who's new, this is the WAGMI Ventures podcast where we do snapshots with interesting builders and founders from across Web3. Check out wagmiventures.io to learn more about the syndicate behind the podcast. But for now, let's get into it with Temoc and Igor at Gateway. All right. Hey, everybody. I'm here today with Igor Mandrigin and Temoc Weber, co-founders at Gateway. Guys, what's up? How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having us, Tanner. Super excited about this. We've been talking about it for a long time, and here we are today. So very excited. Thanks for allowing us to jump on this podcast and go down the memory aisle of Gateway.
Definitely.
Thanks so much. And we're doing great. I'm currently traveling, as usual right now. So in the Munich Technical University. So
very cool.
We'll see how it goes.
Great, guys. So super excited to chat. We've been talking about this for a while, as you mentioned. And so the day's here. So maybe for myself and for everyone else, if you could just maybe give us a quick rundown of your story a little bit, especially maybe focused on like the Web3 aspect. How did you guys get into Web3? And ultimately, I'd love to hear like what brought you guys to creating Gateway together. Maybe we could start with you, Temoc.
Sure. So I've been in tech many years. Started from coreinfra.com back in the days of core transmission, ATM, frame relay, SDH. That'll give you a little bit of my age. Got involved in mobile technology early on in the early 2000s. Ended with a company called Alcatel, which merged with Lucent, now called Nokia. So again, deep infra for many, many years. Got a bit bored around 2013, jumped into a company called Opera, that does browsers, bringing kind of mobile internet to the masses in emerging markets. And around 2016, 17, Opera started looking into crypto, fell down the rabbit hole, and here I am. I'll go explain a little bit more around what we did around that area. But it was early days, from, Ethereum early days to multi-L1 early days. I'll go a little bit more in detail, but I'll pass on to Igor as well.
Yeah, and I started my career like forever ago in information security, like protecting different networks from hacks and malware and stuff like that. After that, did a couple of things here and there, had a little bit of my own startup at some point for mobile games. And then I joined Opera basically at the same year as Temoc. I joined as a kind of engineer behind mobile browsers at Opera, and then Temoc was on the business side. So together we worked quite a long time, like alongside on different parts of the kind of a product. And then after a while, I kind of was looking for something new, and I really wanted to work remotely. And it was, I think, 2016-ish or 2017. And pre-COVID, it wasn't that often that you can find a remote work. So I was really crypto skeptical at that point. But basically, my only options to get a remote work was crypto. So I joined a company called Status. And actually, that's what opened the Web3 for me. I found that companies could be like this open source driven, quite good principle aligned. And from that, I jumped directly into the deep end, directly into the core dev of Ethereum. And I spent a couple of years of basically being in one of the client teams in the Ethereum Foundation called Aragon. Did a little bit of a protocol research, did a little bit of your general things like hard forks and whatnot. And after that, again, I think we met again with Temoc late 2020, 19? Right?
Well, it's actually late 2020. It was 2019 we started talking, and then
we started talking way before that, but for real, like this I think became like, because I think that Gateway was incorporated in 21, right? And then the real deal that we started drafting around was late 2020 when it was really concrete infrastructure.
It was the summer of 2020, and then you're right.
And then back then, if just to give a reminder from the technical perspective, Ethereum was like 90% on AWS in North America, which me as a kind of a core developer it was basically a threat a little bit to the idea of decentralization. So yeah, we wanted to do something different, and that's how we decided to start Gateway. Maybe Temoc, to you a little bit of the story since we actually started it.
Yeah, since we started. So as I indicated, Tanner, myself, when I was in Opera, actually, I was really doing a lot of stuff in crypto and, working in a NASDAQ listed company, Chinese ownership, trying to do crypto was a minefield. It was so complicated. Like really, it was very difficult to do anything meaningful. But that gave me a very good opportunity to talk to a multitude of L1s, early days of Ontology, EOS, Neo, Tron. I brought most of these guys into the browser to actually integrate their L1 through a non-custodial crypto wallet. It was pretty advanced, even more advanced than MetaMask back in the days. We had fully integrated ENS. A lot of people don't know this story, but I think Opera got one of the largest ENS airdrops in history. It was worth millions of dollars.
I didn't know that. Yeah. Fascinating.
IPFS, you name it. Like we were so early on that we just didn't realize. But the problem is that we cannot realize the true promises of really bringing a full kind of Web2, full encompass browser into crypto, mainly because of, working in the NASDAQ listed company with Chinese ownership. So that kind of, it gave me a bit of a barrier for really going full in. And we tried to do something within Opera, myself and Igor, kind of didn't work out. And that's when we said, hey, we're both deep in the rabbit hole. We love this thing. We see a problem in this space regarding decentralization. We try to tackle it. And I put my notice on the spot almost back to back with Igor around May 2021. And then, we just decided to co-found.
Yeah, mine was on the 1st of April, which was a
little
bit funny.
Mine was
awesome.
A couple of weeks after. I was like, I'm out. It was pretty impactful for Opera. They were a bit shocked. But I've been there like a decade as well, and Igor as well. We have done a lot of really instrumental stuff in Opera itself, and they were a bit shocked.
Yeah, fascinating, guys. So I think my question would be, at this point, just to kind of frame things, can you maybe, starting with Igor, could you maybe in your own words kind of explain what Gateway is and, what was the problem you guys originally set out to tackle?
Yeah. Basically, Gateway is an infrastructure company doing the blockchain infrastructure the right way, as we think it. And that comes down to right now kind of three things that we are doing. We are doing the RPC endpoints, like hosted RPC nodes on independent data centers spread across the globe. That means that we are not reliant on like AWS. Like we use them, but we are not really relying on any of them. Then we do validators. We run validators for Ethereum, Gnosis, and some other chains. And the third thing that we just launched is that we right now has this, like in crypto, that there is this thing called rollup as a service. Basically, in a couple of clicks and 6 minutes of waiting time, you can create your own private rollup on Ethereum, and it's going to be your rollup. And again, it's not really tied to anything like AWS. So you can deploy on AWS, you can deploy on your own premise, you can deploy on any cloud. And we were basically, the company went through the iteration. So the first issue was that infrastructure was basically only good on Ethereum, semi-good on Ethereum back then, and was very concentrated in the States. Then after that, we found that staking is very complementary. If we are decentralizing the RPC, there is also like staking components that's super important, especially when Ethereum started moving to proof of stake with the merge. And after that, there was the summer of L2s. And we thought that L2s actually is a really good answer, like this private rollups, is a really good answer to this completely hidden, centralized private blockchains that a lot of companies use for their own services, especially on the enterprise. And we thought to bring kind of a better, maybe a little bit more opinionated technology to these areas as well. Because we always were quite opinionated at Gateway about how we do things, maybe not always in a way that's quickest to build, if you want, but in a way that we feel like right for the blockchain community in general. So that's what we do. Temoc, maybe you can also help a little bit on that.
No, exactly. So I think the initial vision was two things. This kind of, there was a multitude of, back in the days called Ethereum killers, right? The newer ones. And we saw that it was going to become a multi-chain world. And the experience that we had already just providing connectivity to an RPC from a couple providers was less than satisfactory. And we felt like, hey, we should do better than this. Come on, like that's just the basic principle connecting to the blockchains to, be able to transact within the blockchain, right? Like if you had a wallet or you want to do decentralized exchange, like that service should be kind of enterprise quality. So those two first things were kind of like the things they want to tackle. Make sure that we build it in a federated way, right? Like we understand that decentralization is not a switch that you turn on and automatically magic happens and this thing is decentralized. It's actually, you have to think about how you decentralize this infrastructure. And we felt like, okay, let's do it from the basic, the first truly decentralized infrastructure, bare metal. It is not our bare metal, but we work with independent data center providers. And trust me, that's not easy to do because we had to educate these data center providers, right? They had no clue about, what is ledger technology? What is a blockchain? Why do we need this mega hard disk? Why do we need this much capacity? Why do we need fast IOPS? And this process for the last 2.5 years has been invigorating, but painful at the same time, right? Because we could always say, hey, you know what? We'll just create this protocol on top. We're going to call it decentralized, and we'll just deploy it in AWS. Or maybe now that we have GCP, let's do it, and now we decentralize. But we just felt that building all of this future network of value, permissionless in a public centralized cloud didn't make a lot of sense. So that was really a very strong opinion that we had, right? And why we spent a lot of time to do that. As Igor indicated as well, I mean, the second part was more, just to provide a proper enterprise service. And, it's about providing right technical support, delivering on the promises that you want. And we heard in the market as well that, that was not up part. So those were the two main angles that we did when we got started with Gateway.
Love it. Okay. So I'm curious from this vantage point right now, I'm always curious about the kind of double-edged sword of challenges and opportunities, right? I think I'm curious, how would you guys look at this moment? What are some opportunities you guys are really excited about first? Like what are the things that stand out as really possible, really exciting? And then two, like what are you guys maybe a little concerned about? Could be market, could be really anything. And how are you guys kind of thinking about that? Kind of that two sides of the coin. Maybe we could start with you, Temoc.
Yeah. Super excited about what we've seen, the potential to abstract the technology complexity of crypto. I mean, we've been at it for a long time now, right? Like we see the promise of this technology. If you look in the crypto space, everybody's very excited. Hey, this is revolutionary. And we know that, right? Us that we've been in the space for a long time. But we asking the general people to come in this space when the UX is just tremendously difficult. It's very, very hard for just a good Web2 developer to come in and say, hey, I really want to do something cool in crypto. And they come in and, their head explodes because it's like, wow, first of all, what is a wallet? I need to connect it. Doesn't really work. Then I need to know about these APIs. I need to put them together. And it's just like we're asking people to spend tremendous amount of effort for something that they don't really know what they're going to build on top. And we need to avoid that, or we need to make it easier. And that's the part we're really excited, as Igor was indicating before. We've been thinking about this for a long time. And we strongly believe now that, with all these roll-up as a service, there's definitely an opportunity to actually start abstracting the complexity of the infrastructure because one and not, blockchain is very infrastructure heavy, right? Just as the early days of the internet was, right? Like if you wanted to build a website, you need to have a website specialist. Not anybody could just go and say, hey, I'm going to put my own server. I'm going to put an Apache server on top and develop my website. You needed to find somebody that knew that technology in particular. And, we feel the same case now. So thanks to this roll-up as a service, if you start putting all of the tooling in I would say in an easier way, you're able to abstract a lot of the complexity and just make it easier for, again, Web2 developers, enterprises, people to come into the space to actually start playing with this technology. And that's the part that we're super excited. And that's why, I think for the last 6 months, we've been heads down building Presto. We launched it last week. We could dwell into that a little bit more exactly what it is. But in general, it's just this abstraction of the complexity of the blockchain itself, The part that concerns me, myself in particular, just real quick, is it's a little bit like all new technologies, right? It just takes some time to get adoption. I think the spiciness of crypto with the gambling has created, a lot of volatility and excitement, right? A lot of young people come into the space because they think that they can make money very fast, and they do. Let's be honest, right? But that's the part that I get a bit concerned, because the underlying technology really has fundamental capacity to change the way that we are digitalizing society. I have kids myself. I know that their digital identity is even more important than their real identity at times. And I think that right of having the ownership of that digital identity is going to be really, really important moving forward. And I think blockchain is going to be one of those technologies that allows for getting the rights back of this data, right, that we've been kind of giving away for some free services. But we have to be a bit careful on the current market because of the excitement of people making a lot of money, and there's a lot of rugging and things like that, which again is part of this space, but not the nicest. But anyway, I'm talking too much. I'll pass it on to Igor, maybe give some of his opinion.
Igor, yeah, what would your thoughts be? Kind of opportunities, challenges, anything in those directions?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is just based in the moment. We are in bear market, right? And to some extent, well, it's a challenge for every company to survive the bear markets well. But on the other hand, that's a very good way to some extent keep building and kind of separate speculation from building, right? Because a lot of the speculation, if you speculate, if you do cool marketing and stuff, but you don't have a product and you're in bear market, like, you are in for a trouble, right? And then it kind of separates the real builders from, again, there are some unlucky people, of course, here, but generally it cleans up the market a little bit, because at some point it was a little bit even strange how easy it was to fund some projects just because they were tokenizing something, right?
Right.
That's the current market thing. Another thing that's a bear market actually brings is that finally we see the same words that I hear always in Web 2, but almost never I've heard in Web 3, like customer onboarding, customer journey, how do we like reduce friction on lending like actual customers, maybe finally building something that brings people, looking at the whole kind of a set of things, because there were so many cases when we had like 95% of technology there, but never 100%, just because nobody really cared of building it, because everybody was okay in the bull market anyway.
Right.
So you kind of didn't even have the full like funnel. So we have a super cool this thing, but this like customer sign up is missing. Well, whatever. So something like this, yeah. So that's my take.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, Igor, I came across a quote of yours where you'd said, "We believe mass adoption will be enabled by private rollups and app chain development, and we want to be at the forefront of this movement." I was curious if you could maybe just unpack for us a little bit more of your thinking behind that thesis, if it's, still applicable, and just what were you thinking with that comment?
Yeah, so my take there was basically that right now we can very much, like, it's very artificial, because we can split people in kind of two categories, right? Those who like use blockchain. One is this crypto native, you can call them degens or somebody who kind of learned this by themselves, and they already started benefiting from blockchain, from like decentralization, from having like fair air services, of course with some Wild West around this, but in general, like how like self-custody stuff and stuff like this. But then we have other part of it, which is basically enterprises and institutions. And those were like using the blockchain, and they always were using the blockchain in a very controlled manner, right? Because for them, it's very important to keep things under control, to not get in trouble in front of your boss, in front of a regulator, in front of some compliance, blah, 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 blah. Right? And those things never kind of got together that much. And what we see, like, and to be honest, like the amount of people who can be influenced and can begin using blockchain, if our institutions and enterprises will be using this, is higher than just crypto natives. That's more like people are like, if you're I don't know, if you check in the legitimacy of this car or service, like on a blockchain, like that's what everybody does. And then people who like hold, I don't know, ETH or stake ETH, like there's minority. So finally with this rollups, and especially from the technological standpoint with the production releases of EVM compatible zk rollups, I think that's where we can kind of marry those two groups, because we can make and help enterprises to use blockchain in both like more user-friendly ways, because technically like it confirms transactions almost instantaneously. That's why it can do some things, some much better UX, like instant payments, instant like even changing status of your like letter if if you use it for tracing the correspondence. And at the other, and at the same point, it can bring a little bit of the values and keep agency of a user. I will not go deep into the details about why ZK helps with that, but if you take my word for it, like if you have a ZK rollup, even if it's a private rollup as an app chain on a good layer one, like I assume that Ethereum is a pretty good layer one in terms of decentralization and neutrality. Like good means neutral pretty much, right? Then it gives this agency even in a centralized solution. And I think that enterprises will always want some part of centralization, especially if these services and control, especially if the services is something critical for them, because again, they want to feel safe in using this. And this kind of roll-ups can kind of mirror. So I hope I explained my thinking
No, definitely.
behind this.
Definitely. Yeah. Super interesting. So, one question I've occasionally asked founders, but I do regret not asking more, especially kind of in the bear market, right? Like, I think some encouragement would be helpful to people, right? And so the question that I wish I asked more and that I want to ask you guys is, who inspires you in Web3, or really like what projects in Web3 are most exciting right now? This is a bit of a step back from what we've talked about so far, but I do think your vantage point as founders is super unique. And I'm increasingly kind of more and more curious what projects founders in the arena are finding most interesting. So maybe Temoc, would you mind starting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually a very good question. And to be honest, I think there's two parts for anybody that comes into crypto. One is that they realize there's an aha moment where they're like, oh my God, this technology, it's really impactful. Like it could really do a lot of things that we don't realize yet. So you get like this kind of gut feeling in terms of once you realize that, wow, this is not just another, funky technology that we think is going to do something, but you feel inside that it really has that potential. And once you fall into the rabbit hole, I would say you have to be a bit careful because, as I indicated before, the space is full of very colorful people, let's put it that way, in particular in crypto, right? And there's some that are very bombastic in the right way, very bombastic in the wrong way. And you need to spend a little bit of time in this space to really understand it, right? Because there's a lot of people trying to do a lot of really good stuff that sometimes don't get recognized. And there's a lot of not so good people getting too much recognition. And we saw that with like FTX and the whole blowout and many other founders, right? That people look up to because they say, wow, they made it. They made this unicorn. They made so much money. And, the money and fame kind of bedazzles you, right? But actually, for me personally, what I look at, it's really the inspiration of people that work for a long time trying to do the right thing. And for that, there's not many out there. There's, a couple really good handfuls, and you need to spend some time in the space. And the most rewarding thing is, for example, when you get a chance to sit down with these people face to face or, discuss how is their journey. And you see them to this day that they're well placed in life. They have a lot of money and they have that passion burning in their soul. And I mean, lucky enough, me and Igor had that opportunity to sit down with a number of founders that we really respect in this place. And to me, it's a tremendous inspiration because you see, these guys don't have to work for the rest of their life, or ladies, and they still do it because they have that passion. And that passion just kind of, it's like ether, it just comes to you and you pick it up. And to me, that's been tremendously inspirational, to be honest. So, but it takes a while to find, but a little bit.
Love
If
it.
you
Yeah.
find that in the space, I think it really, you get inspired. A little bit like in Web2 tech that people look at, Jeff Bezos or, Elon Musk or these kind of idols, right? And say, wow, they've done so good and, I want to be inspired. It's kind of the same in crypto, but a little bit different. You just have to find the right angles.
Love it. Yeah. Okay, guys, a couple last questions for you here. Igor, maybe starting with you. If I were to say the future of crypto is blank, this is a bit of a recurring question here on the podcast. The future of crypto is blank. How do you fill in the blank?
Should it be like a word or a phrase?
Either. Whatever comes to mind.
Okay. Well, I mean, for me, the real future of crypto is when I'll say like a little bit of it's in a little funny way, but maybe I'll try to explain later. The real future of the crypto and I would even say the success of the crypto is when it becomes boring. And by that, it means that, I mean, nobody is impressed today that you can like upload a picture on the internet and send to your parents like thousands of miles away, or that you can board an airplane and like in like, I don't know, 5 hours be very far away from where you are, even though it's relatively new things. That means that for me, the future of crypto is about adoption. And with adoption, there comes basically, oh yeah, well, it's use blockchain. Who cares? Like everything use blockchain. So we don't really mind is. That's kind of the future that I want for the blockchain tech. So that is my take.
Yeah, that's a good answer. What would your answer be?
Yeah, it's a little bit kind of the same, like kind of this aha moment. As I said, during the dot-com era, there was a lot of people that, say, oh, who needs internet? Like it's just another fad and it's going to disappear. And you had that small group of people that just kind of hardly believe that, hey, this is going to be revolutionary. We're going to push it through, right? You had this very tribal thing in crypto as well, where a small group of people are really kind of making a massive push to make sure that we get that adoption and there's no pushback. So the future of crypto, I tend to agree with Igor. It's like when it gets a bit boring, that means that we're there already. That means that it's been absorbed through the system, that it's being regulated, that it's just being like, yeah, we don't think about it anymore. It should work, right? We're very far away from that. But like nowadays, you look at kids, right? It's like, oh, my Wi-Fi is not working. What's going on? It's like a disaster. The world just came to a stop because either Wi-Fi or the mobile internet didn't work. But the complexity of the systems took decades, to be built. And that will be a good place to be for crypto in general to look at this technology. There is more, I would say, delicate parts because of the regulatory aspect of crypto, because of this value, intrinsic value that you have with tokenization of things. And that's, I think, something that we in the space need to accept. And also we in the space need to engage both with industry and with politicians and with lawmakers, because we know that this technology is going to be impactful. So I'm a little bit disbeliever, to be honest, on this anarchistic side of things. We're going to have these two systems. No, they'll have to merge, right? Let's be honest. Like there's not going to be two worlds coexisting together. Things will have to merge eventually, but it'll take time.
Love it. Guys, okay, what is your team working on right now? And what's the best way for people to follow along on the journey?
Yeah, as we mentioned, we just launched Presto, our rollups platform. That's where you can create your own private zk-rollup. And we are continuing on onboarding new partners. We have the full working environment, with oracles, with on-ramps, with KYC, even though it's a little bit of a heresy in the blockchain space, with all the things that you need to make a functional application on this rollup. And the best way to follow us is probably at Twitter. And I think I guess there will be some show notes to this. So it's gateway_ETH. But yeah, I think the link gonna be in the show notes.
Perfect. Guys, thank you so much for the time. This is a really fascinating chat. I'm pumped to keep following along all the cool work and really glad we could make it happen. So have a great upcoming weekend here and take care.
Thank you very much, Tanner. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Okay. Bye-bye.